Welcome to the Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Pace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, actor and stand-up comedian, currently featured in the movie Babylon, J.C. Currais.
My brother Frank. How you doing, pal? I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
I'm doing pretty good. Who's our guest today?
Our guest, J.C. Currais.
Currais.
And I always spelled his name right, and it used to drive me crazy. He had started doing comedy when I was at the University of Florida. J.C. was the head of the comedy scene there. But he's come a long way, and now he's doing it professionally out here in L.A. He's a great guy, and you'll love him as a guest.
Great.
I
look forward to it. So what are you doing? What do you know?
What do I hear? What do I say?
What do you hear? What do you say?
I'd like to ask you if it's not an imposition about this Alec Baldwin thing. Well, I don't understand. I mean, tell me as a layman, how in the world does a guy who's on a set shoot a gun and they blame him for murder? Isn't it somebody else's responsibility to make sure it's a blank?
Yeah, it's the producer's responsibility, and he was a producer.
Baldwin was the producer.
He was a producer. I mean, he wasn't the line producer, but he was a producer. You know, and he was an executive producer. He is an executive producer, and he pointed the gun and he fired it. So, I mean, it's involuntary manslaughter, but, you know, that's one way of suing the producers is to produce the star.
I mean, at the end of the day, somebody has to be held responsible for this, right? What I mean is, like, people shouldn't be getting killed on a movie set like that.
No, but that's what happens when that's a low budget feature. Alec Baldwin's career is faltering. He's not getting the kind of. I mean, everybody's career is faltering when they get in the 40s or 50s or 60s. You know, the law of diminishing return. But hey, I want. Let's bring Joe West into this conversation because I'd like to get him to hear it and have him comment on it as well. Hey, Joe, how are you?
Wonderful. Joe, how are you, pal? Good seeing you. How's everything?
Good. So, good to be seen. It's good to be seen and not viewed.
Yeah. So we're talking about Alex Baldwin, who is. Billy asked me why he's getting sued as an actor shooting a gun, and I was saying he's a producer as well, and his career has been, you know, wavering, faltering, and he's been limited to what he can get. So a lot of times on these low budget features, instead of doing the 2, 3, 4 steps that you can get for a prop man or an armorer or whatever, they only have, you know, they maybe have the prop guy but not an armorer. So they cut, you know, they cut staff. Right. They cut.
They do it on the cheap.
Well, they cut, what we call below the line, so they can pay pay them more above the line. Right. What's your feeling on that, Joe? I mean, I know you're not really. You know, it's sort of like baseball.
This is some segue.
No, it's sort of like baseball when they're giving all the monies to the players.
Right.
They say they don't have any money to pay the clubhouse guy.
That's not true. They got plenty of money in baseball.
There you go.
But you're talking about them cutting the budget to get the film produced for less money because I mean if you look at the way some of these films come out, they're spending exorbitant amounts of money to put out a product that sometimes is either exceptional or it just bombs. And so, like you said earlier, you said something about him being past his prime. You know.
Well, that's gonna delve into another subject, which is ageism. Because ageism is rampant in Hollywood, and Billy, I mean, you've experienced, Joe, you've probably experienced. I know I've experienced. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm 72, 73 years old, still working in show business, but I'm an anomaly. What did you find in the fire department? What did you find in umpiring?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
No, well, the thing about it is, in umpiring, I was lucky. I came up in the National League they kept the senior umpires as long as they could because they wanted the experience on the field. The American League used to make the umpires retire at age 55.
Yes, and
So
I believe in the soccer, if you're a FIFA referee, you have to retire at 45. So,
yeah, well, that guy's got to run the gamut. He's got to run the whole field with everybody else. I mean, I don't believe there's an ice hockey official that could work past 45 because of what they have to do and skate and everything. I think the oldest NBA basketball referee was Dick Pavetta, and he worked till he was 70 years old. But the National League, like I said, they wanted the experience on the field. They didn't want to pick a new crew chief every 2 years because they wanted the senior guys out there. In fact, when they first started giving us time off, they made it to where the senior guys couldn't take their time off in September because they wanted them on the field when the pennant race was at its height.
Yep.
So,
how about the fire department?
Well,
What'd you find in
the fire department? I mean, obviously there's certain limitations on your age, but the way they usually do it is when you're young, you start at the fire and you work your way back. So the older you get, the more inclined you would be to be a chauffeur, or you'd be pumping water, or you'd be, if you were smart and you studied, you'd be a chief and you'd be making decisions, life and death decisions, without actually doing the physical labor of hauling the hose. Because all we are really is glorified laborers, really, basically, but it's in a life and death situation. So, if you make a bad call, somebody could die. But even as a comic, doing comedy, you're 70-something years old and you're doing comedy, who are you going to draw into a...
I disagree with you, but that's another story. I don't want to go into that tonight because I think funny is funny. If you're funny, it doesn't make any difference. You
but they want to know what else you can do.
Yeah, well, you can be funny. Let's not go into that conversation. But I want to follow that. I want to follow that up with. But is there a mandatory retirement age in the fire department?
I don't really know to answer that question. I would guess around 55, but I don't know. I don't know if there is in New York. There's a minimal age, I know that. A mandatory age before they can put you on. If you're over 31, they don't want you. That's too old.
Is there a mandatory retirement age for a bookie?
Bookies never retire. They're like Bob Hope. Yeah. The money just keeps coming in. We retire from what?
Until they get whacked.
Retire from what?
Well, unless you want this segment to go shorter.
No,
I think it's a good discussion to talk about ageism as it pertains to comedy, and as it even pertains to any type of performance. Because listen, every day in life, there's all ages, right? And I think it should be represented even in entertainment.
I agree. I just didn't want to go down the rationale why Billy O'Connor is not doing comedy because he says nobody's comedy's for young people. I'm agreeing, but
I think this is a good moment for intervention, though. Like we're all here.
Well,
we're gonna have an intervention. What are you trying to get me sober? What are we having an intervention?
We've got the umpire.
Yeah,
we got the umpire.
Okay, let's put this in perspective. Do you remember the song "I Left My Heart in San Francisco"?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, who sang that song?
Tony Bennett.
Okay, has his career blossomed since he got older? I think his career is bigger now than when he was younger.
Well, because he didn't have Billy O'Connor being his manager.
Well, let's put it this way. There's one job you don't have to worry about aging is Congress. You can be 105 years old and still be in Congress.
There is a need for ageism in that, in Congress and also in the Supreme Court.
Yeah. I think it's important to have like an array of ages in politics. I think you do need a solid group of people that are older. Because
absolutely.
Okay, so good.
Yeah, but when you get a guy 100 years old, they say the union just sent this guy over, put him to work. I mean, any other job you can do that besides Congress? Could you imagine being a Teamster? The union sent this guy over, put him to work. Being an umpire.
Well, when we talk to JC, we'll ask him your particular question.
All right, yeah, okay,
but
we should ask.
Putting this in perspective. Whenever I got a young umpire that would come to the big leagues to work with me, I would tell him, you have three responsibilities. your first responsibility is to the game of baseball. And that doesn't mean the commissioner's office. It means the game itself. Because without the game of baseball, we have nothing. And your second responsibility is to your profession. And that doesn't mean the umpires union. It means the profession of umpiring. And your third responsibility is to do what you know in your heart is morally honest and correct. If you do those three things in that order, nothing you do will be wrong. Now, relate that to what we have in our politics today. Their first responsibility is to the United States of America. Well, strike one. They don't do that. Their second responsibility is to the constituents that sent them there. And they don't do that. Strike two. And their third responsibility is to do what they know is morally honest and correct in their heart. So they're striking out in the only three things they have to do. And that kind of bothers me, because if you just think about yourself and what you're doing, nothing you do is going to be right. You have to understand the bigger picture of what's going on. And I think that's the fault of most of the stuff that goes on in America. And I think it hurts everybody when you think of yourself first instead of the big picture and the whole thing that's going on.
Pretty profound.
Well said,
Yeah,
Joe.
that was great.
And I think in view of that, we've got to get rid of this guy Santos, who lied about everything to get
I think you're exactly right.
Yeah,
I don't know why he hasn't resigned already.
Well, he hasn't resigned because he doesn't believe in any of those three things that you believe in, and he's getting backed up by the Republicans who don't want to chance losing the seat and making their majority a little bit narrower.
I would just say Republicans and Democrats are a long way from Frank Capra.
Yeah.
A long way from Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
They are
That's
for
damn
sure.
But I don't think anybody understands this, but the largest contingency of voters in America isn't the Democrats and it isn't the Republicans.
It's the independents. Yep.
And it's been that way for about 10 or 12 years. But the problem is they don't have anybody that really represents them as a group. And that's sad, because in looking at what we've had to vote for in the last 2 or 3 elections, I'm not real happy with any of them. So
Yeah.
a lot of other people, Joe.
Nor am I.
I have a comment about that, actually, and I was thinking about coming up with a segment called "Teach Old Dogs New Tricks." I don't know if you guys know, but there's I think his name is Brett Weinstein. He started maybe it was his brother, but they started a page on Twitter, an independent party page on Twitter, and it was picking up like 500,000 new subscribers to that Twitter page every week or every day, and the government actually got that page banned.
Yeah, I'm not for that.
Yeah, so there was representation, but the government is so crooked that they any kind of momentum that the independent party gets, they get rid of it because they only want 2 parties.
The opinions vested in this podcast represent.
No, it's not.
I know, but you said you know, represent your opinion, because you can't say that the government is so crooked. Parts of the government are so crooked. I agree, but you can't say that everything is so crooked. But
well,
but you said it. But that's your opinion. Now I appreciate it and I respect it.
And I'm not. I mean, this is good for a discussion. I'm not taking offense to what you're saying, but what I just said is not an opinion. This is absolute fact. So
yes.
So what I mean by absolute fact is well, we can talk about this later. We should actually talk about it because it's an important thing that people don't realize, that Twitter and Facebook and the other social medias had a back door that the government used to suppress information. So, and when I say government, actual government officials. So that's not an absolute statement, meaning that everybody in the government suppressed information. But what I'm saying is constituents, people that were a part of the government, they actually set up a way to suppress the independent part.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How many people were on a grassy knoll?
Not the government is crooked so much as the people in the government are crooked.
People in the government are crooked.
Well, where do you think the fatal shot came from the day Kennedy was killed?
I
I just can't figure out why it's still top secret. Why they still have top secret information about that? That's what gets me.
There were 13 people in position to shoot him that day.
13.
The last shot, or the shot that hit him, came from a culvert in the street. And if you look at the films, you can see that they look at the drain where the shot came from.
And Kennedy's head snaps backwards.
That's right.
That's right.
So,
And the limousine came to almost a complete stop when he got hit with that shot. And to tell you that Oswald shot from the depository building, the foliage on the trees wouldn't let him even see the limousine that time of year. So that didn't happen. That was disguised. That was a lie. And if you'll remember, through all the things that happened that day, Lyndon Johnson told the governor of Texas, "Don't get in his limousine."
Wow.
That's pretty scary. Well, the Warren Commission, I mean, that was actually the Warren Commission is when people first started to distrust the government in this country. That was the first thing. And maybe they're not on the level. Maybe everything they're telling us ain't true.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say this, but we're going to have to jump because JC is on the line. So we'll finish this another time. We'll take this up another time.
All right, Joe. All the best, brother.
Joe, be well. We'll take this conversation up another time.
Good to see you guys.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, Joe.
Bye-bye. Hey, so JC's on the way. You don't have to.
I gotta hang up on Joe.
Yeah, you hang up with Joe. Joe, good seeing you. And can you bring on JC Currais? Currais.
There he is.
Gotta get your.
How you doing, Jay?
Gotta get your audio.
He's got to
get his audio up.
There
Are we good?
Yes, we
we're
are good.
Now. How you doing, JC?
I'm doing great. How y'all doing?
Partner
Good.
Frank Pace, Derek Harris,
Hello.
JC Currais.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Pretty good. You want to do anything with his face? You want to do anything with the
I think
lighting?
No.
Everything's good?
Everything's good. Lighting's good. He's done this before.
Yeah, you see.
I feel like I hope it looks good on the screen. It's just like a little Amazon tablet. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, no,
You look great.
I think it's
brother.
fine.
You look
I
great.
I think
The hair is amazing.
You got to sober up your barber. You got to do that.
Yeah. Well, so Billy, why don't you say? Can you bring in? Say yes.
Yes. Derek, can you bring in JC Currais for us, please? My old buddy from University of Florida.
Yeah, he's
great
in.
comic
There you
and
go.
actor.
He's in.
There he is.
Woo! Yes.
Comic
Okay.
actor. How do you feel about yourself, JC?
Hey, JC. I'm Frank Pace, and that's Derek Harris.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, those
Frank
other
Pace.
people here, Billy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Derek Harris. Excuse me.
Nice
My
to meet you
partner.
guys.
Okay, now.
Now. Excuse me. JC, is it JC comedian always, or is it JC actor / comedian or comic / actor?
And what does JC stand for?
So it's just my first name Jorge, and then my last name Currais. My dad, when he came over from Cuba, he didn't like going by Jorge, so he just took J and C, and he was always JC, and I'm Junior, so I've been JC Junior my whole life. So I just
Cubano.
stuck with it.
Cubano. How about that?
¿Cómo estás?
Yeah.
See how he throws around all that Spanish? ¿Cómo estás? He knows a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Hola!
That's about I'm a very bad half Cuban.
Oh, no Spanish?
Not well enough. No. I can exist in a conversation, but not really hold my own.
That works, though. That works.
So now you can answer Billy's question about what JC, comedian JC.
Yeah, well, how do you feel, JC? You'll always be a comic, but is it actor comic or comic actor?
Listen, I'm whatever's coming my way is kind of the way I feel about it. Like, I'm not fighting any aspect, writer, actor, comedian, you name it, I'm doing it. Like podcast, I don't care. You put me out there, I'm ready to go.
Well,
You're moving so fast the camera can't keep up with you. You're
I'm
strobing.
I had my coffee this morning.
Woo! Let's go.
what are you snorting those beans or what?
And is that a championship wrestling belt back behind you?
It's a fantasy football one.
Oh, crazy.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a handicapping thing going for a while. We could have used you. Fantasy football.
Well, you could use it.
I'm a good team.
Billy could have
We
used you.
lost in the playoffs, though. I was the highest point scorer, and they get the belt.
Uh-huh. So,
Yeah.
How'd you get started in business, JC?
So I was at the University of Florida, and I followed a girlfriend into improv, and I found out very quickly that improv's a sharing man's game, and I'm not built for that. And I had some friends who were doing they were helping with the student union stuff, and they had like a student stand-up comedy contest, and they offered to pay for my beers if I showed up.
but you're going to pay it.
And then they're like, "Hey man, not enough people signed up. Can you get up there and just be goofy?" And I did, and I liked it. I got third place. So I got like a $200 Best Buy gift card or something like that. And then the guy who was running the local stand-up comedy was one of the judges, and he said, "You should come by." And then that was it.
Now, was that Calvin or was that
Calvin started after that, so that was Jamie and then Chris too.
then Chris Cope? Yeah, like we've had Chris on the show before, and
So
That's
you
that's
three,
my big brother. That's my comedy dad.
you three guys were at University of Florida at the same time, or when was Billy there? Before or after, or?
I think by the time I met Billy, I had already graduated, but I was still in Gainesville, because as a touring comedian in the South, you can't beat having an apartment that costs $230 a month in rent. So,
And there are plenty of them.
yeah. You couldn't have dragged me out of that town.
yeah.
Also, what a fun place too,
Oh yeah, Gainesville was a great experience, man. I mean, obviously, I was there older, but I had went to somebody in speech class said to me, "Hey, you seem like a pretty interesting guy. You want to come and speak to a few guys that I'm in this group with?" And I said, "Yeah, all right, cool. I'll go." And I show up when there's like 300 people in this auditorium, and they say, "Well, what are you going to talk?" I go, "I don't know." They said, "We can't tell you what you got to talk about. Just come up and do it." And after the show, I had about 20 kids around me, and I had a lot of fun. And then they said, "Well, why don't you try out for this comedy thing?" And that's where I first met JC. I went down there and did a 5-minute bit, I guess. And they said,
Yeah. A Sunday workout day, and it's where new guys would audition to be in the shows we were producing around town. Me and Chris Cope, and Billy came, and I mean, he's undeniable. He's one of those people that when you hear him walk into the room, you're like, "Oh fuck."
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Billy doesn't want to do comedy anymore because he says he's 72 and he doesn't have to offer. He doesn't have
74.
74. He doesn't have anything to offer the younger crowd. I say that's a bullshit excuse for not wanting to do the work.
I'm not going to hate on him for it. It's a tough thing. If you do it half-assed, you're not going anywhere in it. So it's really hard. Even like for me, when I'm dealing with like doing acting stuff, and I was on the Disney Channel show for a little bit, and that kind of handicapped me as far as performing. I didn't have a lot of time. It's that's a full-time job, like 5 days a week, and then even when I could go on the road and do stuff like that, I had to be careful about what I was talking about, or if people were filming me, because if the video, my act is not very Disney friendly, so I didn't want to lose that paycheck. So I kind of
because
it was something where if you love stand up, you got to put a lot of time and effort into it. So I get what you're saying, Frank, but I also get what Billy's saying, where he's like, I just don't know if I can put the time and effort in. And
time and effort is one thing. I agree to that. A 74-year-old man that doesn't want to put the time into it shouldn't be doing comedy on stage. But a 74-year-old man, and I've seen Billy's act, is still appealing to all ages because funny is funny. You don't have to be a generational comic to be funny. You can be funny. If you're funny, you can be funny to all ages.
I agree with you, and I agree with JC too. But like his life on the road, it's 74. I'm recently married. I'm married a couple of years. Do I really want to be traveling around and doing? You can't.
That's a different.
That's making a living as a comic.
Yes, but you still, if you want, I'm saying if you wanted to, you still could be funny to the 20-year-olds, and that's what you said. you said you're not funny anymore to the 20 years old. I agree.
No. I agree with you. Funny is funny. Like at JC, I was old then. When I met JC, I was old. I mean,
Oh yeah, Billy's been old the whole time. There hasn't been a moment where Billy's not been really old.
Hopefully he'll get older.
I'm fucking old to the kids now. Like people who are like, I'm putting out TikTok videos and shit. And it's I feel old. Like even the subject matters I'm talking about. Like if I reference Led Zeppelin, like they're like, who's that?
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. You know, I had a teacher at the University of Florida, and I was talking to this Jewish girl, you know, that we had to write a piece in music. And I said, well, it's got to be ethnic, they said. So I said, well, I'm going to write about George M. Cohen. I'm Irish. She said, well, I don't know who to write about. I said, you're Jewish. Write about Leonard Bernstein. She said, I never heard of Leonard Bernstein. I said, you never heard of Leonard Bernstein? I said, what are you kidding me? You never heard of really? You never? And I talked to a professor. I said, can you imagine this Jewish girl never heard of Leonard Bernstein? She goes, I had half my class never heard of George Harrison. I said, that's amazing to me. But that's it. You get dated.
How do you keep your act fresh?
I mostly talk about myself, so it's pretty easy when you're like self-reflective to kind of, you know, it's just the human experience kind of, or at least my version of that. And then people grab onto what they find relatable, and I just kind of, I go with that. I do a lot of storytelling and stuff like that, and like moments from my life, so I think that it's easier to stay relevant. And then when I work in pop culture references, I just try and update them. Like there's so many young comics, and when you're on the road and when you're doing like the clubs and stuff like that, you meet young comics, and it's kind of easy to stay at least a little bit tapped in. But yeah, luckily I just kind of talk about being a fat piece of shit, so that's easy.
Does it get old the road quick? I mean, do you find like you're just already like I don't know already? What are you doing? 10 years now on the road?
15.
15. And does it get old quick? I mean,
you know, it's hard. I don't know if I think I've gotten accustomed to it at this point. I'm definitely done doing the bad traveling, like we're driving 16 hours to do some gig someplace and you know sleep in the car. That sort of stuff's done. Luckily, I've gotten to the point in my career where they're flying me out now, and it's generally a good hotel, and that makes it easier. I also like do little things to make it better. If I'll tell the club, hey, I'm going to come in a night early. I'm going to fly in, and then I can stay in the hotel, and then I'm not doing a show the day I fly in and that sort of stuff anymore. And yeah, just little things to make it feel less, you know, difficult. You know, flying's a bitch for me. I'm a big boy, so I get on that airplane, and everyone's like, "Well, where's he going?"
It's worse for the guy sitting next to you. Yeah.
So it's been nice to be able to sit up front, somewhat, you know, making a little bit extra cash and be able to get the big seat and not have to have that feeling. Yeah, it makes it easier. You try and do your best to make the travel as less strenuous as possible.
I got a question about that traveling, and since you're right in the middle of it, sorry to cut you off there.
No, that's fine.
What are the tiers for? What are the income tiers? So you are you start out as a comic.
Well, the income tiers are like I just cry a lot when I see my paycheck.
Yeah, but
Derek's
question is going to be, when do you get to the point where you're not going to cry so much?
Yeah. So you know, it's like you mentioned a $200 Best Buy gift card, which you know a guy that's in the middle of Louisiana hasn't seen $200 in his whole life. It's a big deal. So when do you get to the point? Like, what are the tiers? Because I'm sure, and I know it's all different for everybody. Meaning, like you know, some people may spend 10 years never making any money, but at least tell me from the time that you start off making a little bit of money, and then what's the tier after that?
So it basically, when I started in Florida, I was probably making, you know, $25 to $100 a set when I was an opener, and that was the way it worked. Like, and sometimes there'd be a hotel, and sometimes there wouldn't. Sometimes I was sleeping in my Dodge Neon. Sometimes I was driving back. all the way from wherever I came from, or crashing on a couch or whatever I could do to get to the place, do the gig, get some money, and cover the gas, the whole night, right? And then started headlining in the smaller, like lower end clubs, and you can make anywhere from like, $500 to $600 a set and that sort of thing. And now you get like a TV credit, and you get into some of the C, the B, and the A clubs, and on a good weekend now I can clear like $3-4 grand, especially with them covering travel costs and that sort of thing, and having merch, and you can scale up pretty quickly. But then you're kind of trapped in that tier for a little bit. Like I've been in that 2,000 to 5,000 a weekend for probably 5 to 6 years now.
Got it.
So stepping up into that next echelon, that's the big thing, where you're getting door deals and you're making 10 grand in a weekend, or you're making
and beyond the club, as your stand up grows and you get bigger and bigger, you start doing arenas. You start doing 1,500 seat arenas and 3,000 seat arenas and 5,000 seat arenas, and ultimately you can get up to 15,000 seat arenas. But that goes that goes based on how big you can get and how long you can stay there. Like George Lopez, for example, when he started, we were doing 1,000 seat theaters, and when we finished the show, he was doing 15,000 seat theaters. Yeah, so the exposure makes a big amount of difference. And I'm sure when you were on the Disney show, I worked for Disney for 7 or 8 years. All of those shows added a great deal to your credibility, because even though the kids that were doing their show weren't coming to your shows, the fact that you could put it on your marquee made a big difference. And did that boost your price at all, or did that help you maintain your price?
So the Disney Channel credit didn't really add anything for me. It was really just because doing Lethal Weapon actually added more,
right,
because that was the age demographic that I think I was kind of working in. And then the Comedy Central credit and the Conan credit, that's what the credibility. I usually don't even list the Disney one,
right,
currently, just because it's like it was a kids show,
right,
all the way.
Right.
So like when people have come, like I was in Minneapolis, and a family came with 2 12 and 14-year-old little girls who were fans of the show, and the manager was like, "No, they can't come in. They cannot watch what he does up there."
Right.
And when the parents were like, "No, they like him. He's the Gator on the TV show." They're like, and then they came in, and then the comics who went on stage were like, "What is going on? There's children, and they're in the front row." And I just had to kind of politely tell them when I got on stage, like, "Hey, why don't we do this? Why don't you guys go step outside, and then I'll go and talk to them and show them, oh, I'm the Gator," and do all that, because what they're going to hear from us is going to traumatize them.
Well, you're obviously expanding your range. Why don't you tell us about the Lethal Weapon experience?
Lethal Weapon was the first thing. It was so cool. I did Just for Laughs, New Faces, and when you come back from that, they kind of like parade you around town, and you do a bunch of meetings. And I did a casting meeting at Fox, and they literally were like, "Hey, we think we have something that's just perfect for you." And I barely had to read for it. They just kind of tossed me into it, and I'd never done any real like professional acting. I did like an indie horror movie, but that was like summer camp, and we were making $100 a day, and it was just kind of like, oh, we don't even know if this will ever come out. But then with just like a big crew, and it kind of like threw me into the frying pan, and I was ready to. It was a really fun learning experience. I think I would have been better now, obviously. But it was such a blast. It was so cool getting to work with Sean William Scott, and the fact that they turned it from I was supposed to be like a one episode gag character, and then they gave me 5 more appearances. It was really great, and I'm forever appreciative of those guys and just the experience. It made me feel a lot more comfortable when I showed up to the Disney set, because I feel like without that little bit of experience, I would have been unable to perform, because the Disney show was hard.
Yeah, and they feed you pretty good on the movies, don't they?
Oh my God, the last one, Babylon, the Crafty on Babylon, the movie that I just did. That was a whole nother level.
Why don't you tell us?
Because I was good at Lethal and good at Just Roll With It, but Babylon was like crab cakes, and you're like, oh, this is awesome.
Why don't you tell us a little about Babylon?
Babylon was amazing. I got to do it's a relatively bit part, but I had the first line of the whole movie, and I got to read with Damien and Diego. So Damien Chazelle, who directed La La Land, he's the director of this, and Diego Calva, who is he's relatively known, a Mexican actor who had mostly done Spanish language film, and I got to come right in, and I had a scene partner that was. It was amazing. We just played off each other really well, and we had a lot of fun. And Damien's for as big a budget and as high stakes as that shoot was, very loose, very fun. Everyone there is having a good time. Considering there's like 1 million people, and every day and every hour costs XYZ amount of money. You never saw that. Stress on the set everyone was Superman. It was just the most professional thing I'd ever been a part of, and gigantic. Just the fact you walk on and there's 100 people doing things all around you, and you're like, oh my God, this is what it is to make a movie that costs $100 million. And so I'd never experienced anything like that, and it was amazing.
As your career moves forward, do you see yourself leaning more toward the acting or more toward the stand-up, or a mix of both?
I think it's got to be a mix of both for me. Acting was new for me, but I love it. It's like a new, fun passion. And actually, because the acting stuff has started to come along, it's actually made me better at stand-up, because when I was just doing stand-up, it was everything, and I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it made me feel like every set mattered so much, and I had this weight that was really laying on my shoulders at all times. If I don't stay funny, then I won't be able to eat. This will be my career can go south pretty quickly. And then the acting stuff came, and that it just gave me something else to channel some of that excitement. And then I wasn't doing as much stand up, but I was like, oh, it's okay. Stand up can be fun again, because I can go, oh, I'm working as an actor. I'm making enough money that it's not a life or death situation if I book enough weekends this year at comedy clubs.
Yeah,
because I'll just be here and I'll audition. Yeah, it just gave me another thing.
Lack of desperation is a good thing for an actor as it is for a comedian.
Yeah. Absolutely.
When you do comedy, and I've seen your act, I haven't seen it in a while, but you make it effortless, but people don't realize the amount of pressure you're putting on yourself. I can remember you saying to me you were going to get a haircut. You said, I really shouldn't get a haircut because my hair's crazy, and if I might not be as funny with smaller hair, and I never even thought about shit like that. It was just you get up there and you do it, but you got to eat. You're putting pressure on yourself because you got to eat. But you got Lethal Weapon without an agent, right? That was just.
Oh no! I had an agent for sure.
Had an agent when you got Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
It was showcased and they gave it to you. But
yeah, literally, I got really lucky. The guys who own the West Side Comedy Theater in Santa Monica, they're good friends, and there was Asif Ali, who he's been in like WandaVision, and he was just in Don't Worry, Darling. Yeah, great stand-up comedian. He's got his hour coming out later this year. He was doing a small project for Amazon where it was like a stand-up, and they wanted no names, like no credits. And the guys at Westside put me up for it. And then I went and did the set, and I was fully distraught about it. I hated the set so much. I like walked outside. I like spiked my phone on the ground. I was having a full temper tantrum in the alley. And Mo Ali, Asif's older brother, who's an executive producer on the project, came up to me and was like, "Hey, I've never got to really talk to you, and I've never seen you doing stand-up except for in the tape they've sent us, and then tonight." And he said, "Who's your representation?" And he's a manager, and he became my manager that night. And from there, my life changed. Like, wow. He is as important of a factor in the trajectory of my career as anything I've ever done. Like, 2 weeks later, I did Last Call with Carson Daly. 3 months later, I did Conan. Like, it just took off. He did, and then I got new faces. It was all, yeah. So I have modes on stand-up.
Every time I've seen you, your hair's been really out. Is it not out this morning because you washed it? Or is it...
Yeah. I took a shower. When it dries, it'll still be back to that kookiness. Like, I shake it out a little.
Yeah, because
it's there.
I'm working on a show called Night Court now, and we've got this woman on it named Lakrita, who's a real plus size black woman, and she's got blonde hair. And I told her that she has really marketed herself well with her one name and her distinctive hair. And I think when I look at you, I see, a plus size guy with big hair, and there's not going to be a lot of competition for plus size guys with beards and crazy hair. And I think you'll work a lot if you've got a good representation and a great manager, who you obviously do. So I see great things.
It's not going to be ignored, that's for sure.
I see great things coming for your career.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Thank you so much. Yeah, like what's fun is it's like a double-edged sword with being a big dude and having a really distinct look. It's they got to really want the look. They got to come in but you can change people's minds too. You can read for things and they're like, "Oh, we didn't see him looking like this, but JC's so unique and interesting. Maybe he works for it." Like, I think the Gator role that I did for Just Roll With It, like, they wanted like an older guy with like a radio voice. And then I kind of just came in and was wacky. And they were like, "This plays." So, yeah, it's, they just got to I got to get in the room.
Yeah.
Right.
Now on the self-tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, when his hair dries, it looks like he combed it with a firecracker. It just blows out. Yeah. Did you get mistaken for Hagar or something at Disney World?
Hagrid.
What's the name?
Hagrid.
Yeah.
Hagrid. You know who Hagrid is? It's Harry Potter.
A bunch of like tourists. And their kids were all like, "Hagrid! And I don't speak German. So.
but you can sign autographs for an hour.
Totally.
Little will they know.
I know. There's a lot of pictures with kids sitting on my shoulders, and they're going to turn 14 and be like, "Who the hell's this man?"
I think that guy passed away, actually.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
I have a question. So there is like there are these like alliances, these coalitions of comedians like Brendan Schaub, Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer. Do you have like your own little coalition of people that you sort of move around with? Because it seems like it's really beneficial for them because they sort of play off of each other's success.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's you just make friends is what it is, and I think that those guys, they piggybacked a lot of guys up, and that's the way you want to do it. Like, it's like somebody gets success, and then you go, who was going along for the ride? Who was around? Let me help them. And I think that that's what those guys did very successfully, is that they propped up the other people around them. And like that, yeah, you got to have your friends in this, because if you don't, you'll go crazy.
Right.
And you got to keep.
But I don't know if I have like a coalition. Like I don't think I have like, I have allegiances to guys who I've been working with for a long time, but I think it's just because I also just find them very funny.
Right.
But more importantly, keep relationships established with guys like Damien, because Damien might not think of you now, but in 10 years he'll call you.
Yes.
Because we've heard that over and over from guys like Stephen Lang and Don Scardino and everybody who have stayed in touch with people, and they've remembered them through the years. So make sure help them remember you would be my piece of advice.
I got a question for you, JC. When you're traveling on the road, when you're on the road gigs, do you usually bring an opener with you? You depend on the club to supply the opener. And if you did bring an opener with you, be somebody more apt that you like to travel with, or somebody more like Chris, a buddy of yours, or would it be more like somebody you just find funny? Or
So for me, I always want to bring somebody, but the feature spot, like the opener spot, it's kind of dying. They want to just have a local person most of the time, or the money's just so bad that you can't get somebody to fly out with you. But you just try and do the best you can. I bring James Fry a lot. Yeah, good guy, hilarious. I bring Ralph Guerra a lot. I brought Lisa Best before. Justin Clark. There's a few people who I like to travel with. It's kind of fun to have somebody to kind of pal around with. It makes the road a lot less lonely. So you just have someone to run ideas with, and you can write jokes, and it makes the whole thing feel like you're in it the whole time, as opposed to just showing up to the club and you don't really know anyone. But even then, like it's nice to do that too, because then I get to meet all these young comics who I wouldn't have met, and you get to build new relationships, and I get to see funny people who you might not have ever seen. So there's good and bad to it. I think it's mostly just the landscape of money. There's not a lot of money for openers.
Right.
So covering the travel and stuff like that, it becomes to the point where you feel bad asking somebody to go with you, because you're like, you're going to lose money on this. And they're like, I don't care. I want the experience. And then you're like, okay. But then it's hard to watch somebody go like, well, I flew across the country and I made negative $250.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember asking you at UF, because you were like, you were sort of running, you and Chris were sort of running the comedy scene there. And I asked you, do you ever get nervous when you're up in front? And you said, sometimes when I step up. Well, you're a long way from that step up now.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself getting nervous when you were first in front of the cameras, when you first did Lethal Weapon, or that step up? Did you feel the bite?
Majorly. Like the nerve that I felt like on the sets was a whole nother level than even the stand-up. Like I felt like I took to yelling at people professionally pretty quickly.
Really?
Like I just, because I have control over everything. Like it's whatever comes out of my mouth is whatever comes out of my mouth. I realized quickly, like even if I screw a joke up, is it really screwed up until I'll acknowledge that to the audience?
Right.
Like I have to let them know I messed up. If not, it's just whatever I said. When you're working with other people's words, it's scary, because I'm like, okay, I need to get this right, at least to a certain extent, because someone wrote this, they put the time in. There's a lot more on the line. Like it's a team game, and if you screw up, you're not just screwing up for yourself, you're screwing up for the whole group. The camera ops, the extras who need to get the fuck out of there because they're not making any goddamn money, and you can't get your line, and it just keeps fucking happening, and they're like, back to one, and then you're like, ah, shit, I'm making everybody fucking upset, like, I feel like the pressure hit me harder in that.
Yeah,
but And exciting too.
And it's more than just getting the words right. There's subtext that goes into it, and you want to be able to act the subtext and not just act the words. That's really important.
So yeah, like you said, you put pressure on yourself when you're doing comedy for yourself, and you're paying the bills. Now you're putting everybody's load on you, and you just feel like you're part of the whole clog. You clog the machinery, it all goes.
Right, and then, or it's just, like you just want to make sure you're doing it to the best of your ability and doing it and again, like you're trying to do it funny, you're trying to do it right, and you're trying to make sure that it's done in a timely fashion. I never had to deal with time constraints in that way. Like whenever I would like shoot sketches and goof around with buddies, like we just do 9 million takes because who cares? We're just sitting and drinking beers at some guy's house. So you can try and bring the best version of it. You just run it a million times so that it's like it's in your nature. So the lines aren't a thing you're thinking about, and you're just thinking about how you're going to nail it. What I found hard actually was on the Just Roll With It set, the marks. More than anything, I had trouble with that because I feel like I like to move, and I had to learn that pretty quick, especially on a multicam.
Yeah, I was in one movie. Of course, I produced it, so I put myself in a movie. But I said my line was "How you feeling, babe?" It was a Babe Ruth movie, 1991. My line was "How you doing, babe?" And we walked it, and Mark Tinker, who was the director, say, "Make sure you hit your mark." Well, I was so worried about my one line, I didn't even know what the mark was. So I had to walk up to him, hit the mark, and deliver the line. I was looking down. I was looking up. I didn't know where the hell to do it. And I said, I really respected the actors drastically after that. I never forgot that.
That's something you would never even think of if you're a layman. If you've never been in the movie. Like hitting the mark, you think would be, well, that's easy. You go over there and stand where they put the piece of tape and you go hit.
Yeah, well, they put the piece of tape there because that's where the light is. So,
Right.
So if you don't hit that mark, you're not in the light. You're in the dark.
Yeah.
Finding confining. I mean, you're a freestyling comic. You're animated. You. Did you find it super confining? All of a sudden now you feel like imprisoning that you had.
I definitely had to tone down the amount I moved. Like even like today, Frank was like, "Wow, you're moving so fast that the camera can't capture." It's I had to like learn to like, all right, you got to really like, you have to find a center and like stabilize yourself. Like my feet have to be planted. That's what I started doing. I started just like really taking the thought to go like, your feet are concrete.
What I love about this podcast thus far, JC's hair is getting bigger and bigger.
We'll see. I can't stop touching it either. I literally cut it yesterday myself. But
yeah, I can tell.
So tell me, JC, was with the Disney thing when you played Gator, the steady paycheck. The steady paycheck was got to be super gratifying, right?
You can afford more apartments at $250 a month with that paycheck.
Yeah. When they made me a series regular for season 2, and they told me what I was going to make an episode, I was like, acting is good.
Robert Mitchum had an old line that he never watched any of his own movies, Robert Mitchum. He never saw himself on screen. And they said, how could you not watch your own movies? And he said, because they don't pay you to watch them. He said, they just don't pay you to watch them. They pay you to be in them. How does it feel to see yourself on the big screen when Babylon? How did that feel for the first time? Because you're a big movie buff. I know that.
Yeah, I love it. I go to the movies so much. I got that AMC A-list. Shout out AMC A-list. Give me free A-list. I go so much. Like I probably go to the movies twice a week. Especially if you're traveling. It's just a good way to keep a day. And yeah.
So how did it feel? You're on a big screen.
It was crazy. The premiere was insane. Like it's all these celebrities and shit, and you're like talking to them because my part's not enormous by any means, but it is the opening scene the first line, and I'm very recognizable. So I got to rub shoulders with people, and it's nuts. The shot opens, a truck pulls up, and then my big ass gets out, and I'm like, I'm in this fucking movie. Like,
I'm in this fucking movie.
Wow.
It is. That's the feeling. It's like, I'm in a fucking movie. Like, I went and saw it with my mom in Atlanta. And,
That's great. What a kick.
Oh, my God. And so it's my mom, my uncle, and my aunt, and we're watching it. And literally, like, they're just laughing. Like, the minute I watch, they're just like, wait, they couldn't fucking it's like, it breaks your brain.
Yeah,
that's just great, man.
So you see,
my uncle's like walking through the theater being like, hey, look, you know this guy? And they're like, no.
So you see a lot of movies. So a couple of weeks ago, Billy and I were talking about the Banshees of Inisherin. Did you see that movie, and what'd you think of it?
I have not seen it yet. It is on the list. I want to see it so bad because I love In Bruges, and I've heard that Colin Farrell's performance is like outrageous. I want to see it so bad.
Well, I hope you feel like that after you're halfway through it.
Okay, can you do us a favor? Can you watch the movie? But when does this come out?
This will be in March sometime.
Okay, so can you watch the movie and then send us like a clip of your review of the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, and we'll just put that in there.
Yeah, we'd love that.
Okay.
I'm going to next week, and to avoid losing $1 million while I'm there, I will sit in the hotel room and I will watch that movie.
Perfect.
Oh, that's great. And send us the clip, and Billy and I will be up your ass to get the clip. So if you don't send it, 5 years from now, we'll say, send us the fucking tape. Where the fuck is the movie? Where's the movie review?
You'll be saying it. 5 years from now, I'll be dead. You fuck. You'll be here.
Okay. So, well, then I'll be doing a podcast with JC. So we got to. Either way.
Wait a second. Let me get my hair together. Wait a second. You don't like my hair?
Have you seen, what movies have you liked?
I just saw. What's the latest one I saw? I saw Megan. That was pretty good. The robot one. I like a lot of good and bad movies. What else? Oh, God, why can't I think of it? You put me on the spot.
You should work a lot in horror movies.
I love horror movies. That's my favorite.
You look like the guy who's got the chainsaw.
That is my dream is to die in a horror movie. I want that so bad.
Wow. You mean die on screen though?
Die on screen.
I like the glass onion was good. The Menu is the one that's
I
like that?
Yeah, I like it too.
You liked it?
Yeah.
Love the Menu.
No, it was good.
Yeah.
Bones and All was okay. Smile.
Smile's a good one.
Smile. Barbarian. That one, if you haven't seen that, that's on HBO Max. It was a smaller budget horror film, and it is a wonderfully told story and shot perfectly. Like big ups to everyone who was involved with Barbarian. That movie's fantastic.
I got a friend of mine who's a producer director on Mayans MC. I'm going to call him about you tomorrow because you're perfect for something that they're a motorcycle gang.
Oh yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. They need
Mayans MC.
And he will call. We had him on, the guy for the Mayans, right?
Yeah, we had him on. I'll give him a call. Tell him to hook you up. Tell him to hook you up.
I would appreciate that so much.
Who's your agent? Who's your agent?
My manager's Mo Ali, and then I'm with Innovative.
Okay. Mo Ali.
I got a question about this Babylon. So the cast is it's a knockout cast. Like there are so many. Well, obviously stars, but I'm looking at the list of female cast. There's a bunch of beautiful women. What was that like working with that group?
Margot Robbie is stunning. Like to the point where when we were on set and shooting that big opening dance number she does, there would be someone who would come over someone would come over a PA, like a sound system, and go, Everyone, background, stop staring at Margot. Stop staring at her. Because people are just like,
Wow.
Did it have a guy walking around with a spoon?
people say, stop looking at her. That's the same thing when Brad moved through a room. They're staring at him through. It just they're big stars, and it's kind of funny. He said, I mean, I got to interact with him at the premiere, and then on the day we were shooting. And there's a big sequence with an elephant. I won't give it away for people who haven't seen the movie yet. And my character is tied to the elephant, and not actually tied, but involved. I'm not getting dragged by the elephant. No. I'm interacting with the elephant, and I'm like screaming at it, "Come on, big fella!" And I'm going for it every take.
I'll tell you.
And I'm like sweating. I'm like gross after everything, and I'm sitting in like a chair in like the base camp area, and I just felt like a little tap on my shoulder, and I heard fantastic, and then I look up and I missed all of it, and I literally was like, I recognized the voice, and then everyone who was sitting at base camp was like, that was Brad, you know that, right? I was like, what the fuck? He like came by and like touched me like a phantom. It was insane.
Well, I worked with Brad in 1986. He was just out here, and he was 22, and he was on an episode of Head of the Class, and even then, all the women came out of the production office and were ready to throw their panties at him. Even then, and
I mean, the dude is handsome.
Yeah, you think? Hey,
yeah.
JC, an understatement from JC.
There it is. That's the segment. I'll come back. An understatement.
I've been dealing with that all my life, Frank. Let me tell you, my son told me when he was 8 years old. He said, Dad, the little girl behind me is poking me with a pencil. I said, that's the O'Connor curse. I said, that's going to happen to you. He says, well, what do I do about it? I said, don't worry about it. It goes away. You don't got to do nothing. That's.
I bet the O'Connor curse was that old joke you used to do, Billy, about about having a heart on and walking into a screen door.
Yeah, his nose hits first.
His nose hits first.
Can you tell we've heard it?
That's the curse.
We've heard it.
Curses.
Can you tell we've heard it over
and over? His hair's getting bigger. Look at this. It's going right in front of our eyes. You're going to have to get the wide screen, Frank. Get the wide screen on.
Yeah, it's looking good.
Well, brother.
What else you got?
I think it's just fantastic. What about tips for young comics? You got anything for young comics out there? How do you start? What do you do?
Don't start in LA. Find a smaller scene. Try and get up as much as you can. Don't stay with the same 5 minutes. Like, just try and write. Try and do new stuff. Because what you'll find is that the first stuff you write, it'll still be there. You can make it better. When you're a better comic, you'll go back to it and go, oh, okay, I can make this funnier. I think a lot of it's just go and do it.
And like Jerry Seinfeld says, don't throw anything away.
Never.
Write it down, put it aside. Write it down, put it aside. Write it down, put it aside. Because somebody said, it may have been you said, you go back to it and come back to it 5 years later, and you've got another slant, and you can make it work. If it didn't work the first time, you can make it work the second time.
I think another thing is that's why like being a good comic is also being a good editor.
Yep.
Yeah. Same thing with being a writer. If you're going to write, you got to edit. Editing is not cleaning up after the party. Editing is the party. You got to edit.
It's the work. It's the chewing the meat. That's what's make the pie.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, brother, I'm delighted to see you again, as always. We're going to get together soon. We'll get you on that boat.
I can't wait. I love you.
Well,
what?
I was going to say you're going to need a bigger boat than 30 footer to get him on.
That's my favorite movie, so I'll take that reference.
I love you to death, brother. It's great seeing you again. Just great. And I'm so happy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
One other question before I go. So, you think your manager is as responsible as your agent for your career going to where it's going, or more responsible?
My manager's more responsible. I mean, I love my agents; they're great people. But Mo, it's different. Mo is like every day. I'm talking on the phone with him every day. Like we're a team in my career,
Yeah.
and I think that's one from a manager.
I'm going to say
You want someone who's like so invested in you that when you succeed, they succeed, and he doesn't have a ton of other people, and it's the way it works. It's like he's in the JC Currais business, and he's the number one guy, and that's what matters so much. So
yeah, and I'll second that emotion, because I was with a young actor this week, and I said, "Who do you think's more important?" He said, "Your manager or your agent?" He said, "My manager, but my agent's all he's doing is negotiating contracts." I said, "Well, if that's all he's doing, you ought to fire him and hire an hourly attorney who will just charge you $500 or $750 an hour. But if he's done in 2 hours, you pay him $1,500, and you never hear from him again until you want him to negotiate the next contract." So I endorse what you're saying wholeheartedly.
The manager.
You know, I love my agents too. It's like everyone's working at something. It's just, I think just the daily amount of time and effort put in is just it can't be a one man show. So it's like Mo's the captain, and he steers the ship, and he kind of delegates things to the agents, and I kind of like, they all work as a team.
Yep. Anyway, you've been a great guest. I really appreciate you coming on.
What a pleasure.
I'll give you a week. You're going to be in Las Vegas for a week. Probably a week from Monday. I'll shoot you the first. How about that review of Banshees of Inisherin? And I'll send you an email every Monday. Say, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? We got it. I'll leave you alone.
Practice your motorcycle. Practice your motorcycle.
Now not want to do the review just so I get that weekly email.
No, I'm not gonna call a guy from Mayans until we get the review.
I guess I'm watching that after the games on Sunday.
Yeah. Be well. Nice,
all right, my
nice
brother.
to meet you.
Love you, JC. Good seeing you again, pal.
Thank you guys so much. Seriously.
You bet.
You're a great guest.
Be well.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Here is JC's movie review.
Hi there. I'm JC Currais, and I'm doing a short review of The Banshees of Inisherin. It's possibly the most boring movie that I've kind of liked. People who are living in Ireland in the 1920s are weird. That's what I gathered from this film. The performances in it are fantastic. Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Barry Keoghan, Kerry Condon, all of them put forth amazing performances in a movie where nothing happens. There's self-mutilation, there's donkeys, there's a weird bromance. Are they gay for each other? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think he just wanted to be able to drink Guinness with someone. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie. It was entertaining, but I couldn't watch it all in one sitting. I fell asleep during it once. I liked it. Sort of. I think that's what the movie should be called. Banshees of... I kind of liked it.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart of a guy. And like I talked about before he came on the show, he got that gig with Disney, and it was a good paying gig, and it was a weekly gig. And the first thing he did was he went out and bought his mom a house.
Oh, did he?
Wow.
Why didn't you say that? Well, you just did.
I did say
You
it.
just did.
I didn't want to say it in front of him because I didn't want to embarrass him, but
wow,
that's the kind of guy he is. He went down and bought his mother a house in Atlanta.
Look at that.
And that's class. I think that's class.
I was going to say that I think this is the most. He struck a heartstring with Frank. Have you ever seen him so?
I think it was classy of Frank to think of him for Mayans, but
well,
that's what Frank does. He's always connecting people.
Yeah, but this is like the first one he's been like, I'm going to take care of you.
No, I didn't say that.
He didn't say that.
I saw a unique type like.
Yeah, and that's what you.
I don't mean take care of him, but
this guy should be in every fucking motorcycle movie ever made.
You couldn't be more right.
I mean,
and he'll handle it with no problem.
Yeah, because I was watching. Like I said, I was watching. I don't know. I either today or last week or the week before or the week before that, but the mayor of Kingstown. Fuck, he should have been shot in Kingstown. He could have been a motorcycle guy in Kingstown speaking parts.
Yeah, but see, you connect that. I interviewed the same guy for Mayans that you did, but my mind doesn't go there. Your mind connects people, which is what you do. That's cool. That's cool. I'll give you a kudo. Hey, you want a kudo? How about a kudo?
Is that a kind of cookie?
Write me a check. I'll give you a kudo.
Is that a kind of cookie? I want to get a kudo from Derek.
A kudo?
Yeah.
Derek ain't giving no kudos. You give a kudo?
You're the first person I've ever heard kudos turned into a singular.
Yeah, a kudo. I want a kudo. I want a kudo cookie. Kudo cookies.
Don't thwart me, Derek. Don't thwart me. It's a kudo.
I want a kudo cookie by Keebler.
Ooh, look at that.
Alliteration.
Ooh. Very good. Kudo cookie by Keebler. Very good.
Kudo cookie by Keebler.
So we say goodnight, Frank? What do you think?
I think it's about time.
About time we get off. I think it's about time.
See you next week, folks.
See you next week, folks.
Thanks
very much for looking in. And for Christ's sake, read more. These lips could talk.
Thank you. I was just going to say another week we've gone without
Confessions of a Bronx
without
read the goddamn books. They're good. Read them.
As your friend said, if your friend writes a book,
you buy it. That's right. And don't read them. Just buy the damn thing.
and give them as gifts. All right.
Take it easy. Thanks for looking at it.
Next week's guest, actor and author of James Cagney Was My Babysitter, son of the Academy Award winner Shirley Jones, Ryan Cassidy.